During our own investigations into post office tape recordings, we have uncovered what bosses knew but didn't tell about faults with the Horizon computer system. Now we have found more of the same in a letter from the Chief Executive, Paula Vennells, to the Minister in charge at the time. The Minister was Jo Swinson, a Liberal Democrat in the coalition government. She told us she had been misled by the letter. In it, Paula Vennells wrote there was no evidence sub-postmasters had been wrongly convicted.
Paula Vennells, Chief Executive of the Post Office.
The Post Office sent sub-postmasters to prison in their hundreds, while its boss assured everyone for years there was no miscarriage of justice.
As the investigations have gone through, so far we've had no evidence of that.
But secret recordings obtained by ITV News show Paula Vennells,
just to let you know, Paula has now joined us.
Hi, Ian.
Yeah, hi, Paula.
was told about issues with its Horizon IT system in 2013 and warned by investigators they were not being transparent about remote access to branch accounts.
What might be interpreted in the press as weasel wording is extremely dangerous. You know, when you say they didn't have access to the Horizon system, but actually they were passing entries to live data, but you didn't ask that. That is really dangerous ground.
But she continued to deny there were any problems, and in a letter to the government seen by ITV News 18 months after those meetings, she doubled down. On March the 9th, 2015, she wrote to then Post Office Minister Jo Swinson and confidently asserted that the Post Office has found no reason to conclude that any original prosecution was unsafe and that no evidence has been found through these investigations of any system-wide issues with Horizon. Jo Swinson has told ITV News she was misled by Paula Vennells in this letter and that the recordings are at odds with what she was being told at the time. And before that letter, in 2013 and 2014, lawyers hired by the Post Office found that unreliable evidence had been used to prosecute sub-postmasters, casting doubt on a number of convictions that was not mentioned by Paula Vennells. This former minister says the letter could have serious consequences.
Oh, it's incredibly serious. She signed off a letter to the minister, Jo Swinson, her boss in government, which is plainly untrue. And what's more, it's plain that she knew it was untrue at the time. Did she perjure herself in front of the inquiry? Did she also mislead the select committee? But what this demonstrates in terms is she was not telling the truth in 2015.
Wendy Buffrey was wrongly convicted of false accounting in 2010. She didn't just lose her post office, she lost her home above it, as she struggled to pay back the £24,000 they said she owed. Her conviction was not overturned until 2021.
She fed us to the wolves, and she deserves to be punished for that. It's all very well saying, I didn't know, I have no idea. She was the CEO of that company.
Paula Vennells told us she will be giving evidence to the inquiry and apologises for the devastation caused to sub-postmasters. The Post Office says it's fully focused on getting to the truth.
Daniel, the letter we're talking about, the one you've seen, was written in 2015. Take us through what was going on back then.
Well, this, Nina, is a key moment in the timeline of the slow-motion car crash that became this Horizon scandal. This letter was sent by Paula Vennells on the 9th of March 2015, as you say, to announce to the government effectively the end of the mediation scheme. We understand the very next day the Post Office wrote to Second Sight, the independent investigators, to announce that their contract will be terminated and they would no longer be able to carry on their investigation. For sub-postmasters who've campaigned for justice, they see this moment as a key moment because it's the moment the Post Office, they believe, tried to shut the whole thing down. No more mediation, no more investigation, effectively no more to see. Of course, we now know it didn't work. It didn't work because of people like Alan Bates who didn't let it. Let's be clear, the government at the time effectively took what the Post Office said at face value and didn't question it. We now know from the recordings that we have been showing on our programmes over the last couple of weeks that the Post Office were saying something publicly and saying something different privately. And this is key now to know what they knew and what they were told and when.
Yeah, and the key for the inquiry is to compare what was being said back then to what is being said in evidence right now.
Exactly, and that's going to be a tough task, as Paul said in his report. The key figures in the next few weeks will be appearing, Paula Vennells and the chief executives at the Post Office. It's going to be a big task. There are thousands and thousands of documents, hours and hours of recordings to go through here. The truth has been hard to get to for the last 20 years. I suspect it's going to be pretty hard over the next few months as well.
Daniel, thank you very much. Thank you.